This series of author interviews is brought to you by Leisure Press and the Book Reality Experience, turning writers' dreams into book realities.
Hi everybody and welcome to Book Realities, our interviews with authors series, and today we're joined by Wanda Penalver Bevan, a poet. Hiya Wanda, how are you?
Hi Ian, I'm doing all right. It's nice to talk to you.
Nice to talk to you too. Now whereabouts are you in the world?
I am coming to you from Phoenix, Arizona,
Nice
in the
work.
US. Yeah.
And was Phoenix where you were born and bred, or did you grow up somewhere else?
No, I grew up around a lot more inclement weather, and I was born and raised in upstate New York. I was born in Ithaca, New York, and made my way across the country to Chicago, where I went to school, where I went to college, and then spent the last 3 decades in Southern California. And I've been in Phoenix now only about 5 years.
Was it the sunshine of Southern California that took
Uh,
you away from the winters of
it
Chicago?
Pretty much it was actually a goal I had to get into the television and film business in Los Angeles after college. So that's what really brought me out to the West Coast. And I don't miss snow at all. I don't mind snow on a vacation, but I'm all for the sunshine now.
And when you say that you went to Southern California for the movie business, so what did you study in college? Were you studying screenwriting, or did you want to be a writer, or what was little Wanda's ambition when she was growing up?
So little Wanda's ambition was to be an actress, and my theater degree in college was in that area. So I majored in drama.
So how did the
So
acting career work out for you in Southern California? I've got a horrible
I
feeling that you're going to tell me you were a waitress for 5 years and then you had your big break. Or
actually no, actors in Los Angeles, at least when I was doing it, it they either were waiters or typists, and I so you're not entirely wrong. And I opted for typing. So I'd like to say I'd had some mild success in that business, in TV, film, and not so much film actually, but television and some stage and few commercials, and fell out of love with it probably in the late 90s. I finally made my peace with it to walk away.
and
Um,
what did you walk away to? What was the attraction that took you away from
oh,
it?
Actually, at the time, I walked away to the event business, and I fell in love with special events, and I did that for a few years, and then fell in love with the hotel business, which is what I'm in now when I'm not writing. My day job is property administration at a major hotel chain here in Phoenix, and I love it. And I think it's a it became a combination. The job itself ended up being a combination of different kinds of careers I've had over the years, which people who know me will say are about 5 different careers, which I don't think is unusual for creative people. But that is my day job, and I do enjoy it, and I do love it, and I love people, and I do spend a lot of time, however, thinking about writing when I'm not writing,
So in
which
this whole career progression from Ithaca to Chicago and all the way to Southern California and now to Phoenix, where did the writing spark hit you? Was it recently, or was it when you were in Ithaca as a toddler?
it was since my childhood. I wanted to be an actress, but writing found me even when I was little. And it came so naturally, and I was always doing it. I also I came very close to actually studying journalism in college instead of um, acting, instead of theater. So it was kind of a toss up at that point, but the writing never left me, and I was writing plays and stories and different things even in elementary school, and I never thought of it as something I would do as an adult, but I did play around with it more as an adult. And in Los Angeles, I did as there's a joke that everybody in Los Angeles has a screenplay, and I have to say I ended up being a member of that group. I actually have two though, so but I've just always enjoyed writing, and it's never left me. So I don't remember making a conscious decision to be a writer.
When you say about screenplays there, that wasn't your only writing, though. You've had quite a lot of your work recognized, and some of your work actually appears in public settings.
Yeah, I do have I did publish my first contemporary women's fiction novel in 2016. So that was my first novel. It's called Their Souls Met in Wishton. I'm working on the second of three of those books about in the Wishton environment. It's a book within a book. What I was going for there is the relatability of people to have a what if story. I think we all have a what if story. I also have from this poetry collection, I know we'll talk about in a second. There's a poem in the poetry collection that I contributed and donated to the archives in Oklahoma City, honoring the victims that were lost in the Oklahoma City bombing. And my understanding is from the archivist that there is a place at the Memorial Center where they're featuring my poem, America's Child. So different kinds of things over the years, and I just keep writing, try to keep writing.
You know, you mentioned there America's Child, which is one of the poems in the anthology. America's Child is hugely powerful. It was the poem that caught my attention immediately when you sent in your submission. You say that it was to do with the Oklahoma bombing. Are the rest of your poems based on life events of yours or particular historical events within America? How do you get your inspiration for your poems?
That's an interesting question because I find that I've dedicated a slow dance in memoriam to all those who feel things deeply, and I find that the things I feel deeply, whether they be about a terrible tragic event, a social event, or something that just happened in the news, or whether it's a relationship, or whether it's my children, or I find that drives me to write. So it may end up being something like America's Child. And what struck me was when the bombing happened, first child she was actually about to turn 3 at the time, which was the age of many of the children who were lost in that bombing. But what struck me was that there was this huge response by the public that the person that perpetrated this could not have been from America. It must have been from the outside. It was an outside terrorist, that sort of thing. And it turns out it was not. It was a domestic perpetrator. And I was really struck by the fact that he's America's child, that we have collectively raised this individual, and somehow things have gone terribly wrong. I think that's what drove me to write that poem. And thank you. I'm pretty proud of that one. And I also have a poem also in the book to Trayvon Martin, the African American teenager who was killed when he was just walking in a neighborhood. And I have another one, a little bit more current political flavor to it, but I don't have a huge group of political poems. Whatever strikes me. And in my case, I wasn't, and I talk about this in the book, I wasn't motivated to write during the pandemic so much as I was motivated by the timing of pulling all these together. And I had a lot of creative and writer's guilt that I wasn't incredibly busy writing during the quarantine.
You said there that you didn't do much writing during the pandemic, but you did bring together a number of poems into the anthology that we've been chatting about. the title of which is A Slow Dance in Memoriam and Other Poems. So, how did that come about? How did you approach that, and why at that time?
There was something about my poetic voice. It got me reflecting on my own creative voice, so to speak. And the poetry anthology is actually a collection of poems that I've written over the last 4 decades. I think it was actually the self-reflection that resulted from the quarantine that went, maybe put these together and maybe put them in a book. So that's really how it came about.
I'm
Yeah.
glad you did. Now, where did
Yeah.
the title come from? A Slow Dance in Memoriam. What's that to do with?
The title poem is a tribute to an artist, a major recording artist that passed away that year, actually. There was a moment with my fiance that we actually danced to this person's music, and the poem is it's a tribute to the artist, but also the setting was the pandemic. So the setting was the pandemic. There was a very deep despair that I was experiencing because of the love of this recording artist's music. So I decided to make it the title poem. Thought it was a good place to start.
Very good. Now, I am going to mention that we're being very coy about mentioning the actual artist
Yes,
because, and people need to be aware of these types of things.
I
Um,
didn't know how to. I wasn't
yeah,
sure
the title of the
how to
book
go into
wasn't.
it.
Yeah, the title of the book was different when I originally got it, and then we asked permission. Well, we really didn't. We went to say, "Hello, artist's estate. We are going to call our book this
Right, with your
to
blessings.
recognise this person and how we feel about him," and they said, "No, you're not." And they
Right.
didn't say no, you're not nicely.
They
They
said
said,
if you do, right.
and so I was bombarded with lawyer letters from various very highfalutin law firms in the US. And so we
Right,
decided
right,
that bravery was not on the cards, and so we retreated.
right, right. Well, exactly. And I as you and I both know, we I was not committing any kind of legal wrongdoing by using the original title. And it's like I said, it was actually a tribute to this person. Um, so the poem is very much the same, except for specific names. And and a legal as a legal assistant, also one of my jobs working for lawyers for 20 years, I also knew that there was no copyright protection of this person's actual name. The copyright protection refers to bodies of work, and they don't. But I let's just say you were more energetic about it than I felt at the time. So I didn't I just let it go.
Yeah,
And
it
I think
was.
it remains a very special tribute to this singer.
So do I.
I hope
I,
so. Anyway, hope so.
I think it's a great tribute to them, and I was stunned and surprised and shocked by the reaction of the lawyers. But in the
As
end,
I.
in the end, you think, you know what,
Yes.
we'll
Yeah.
just go with that. We'll just let it go.
We'll just keep moving. Exactly.
So when you're writing, being a poet is very different from being a novelist, where you might set aside chunks of time to write. Where do you write your poems, or how do you write, or when do you have to be in a writing room with a writing hat?
No, not for poetry. The the poetry is tends to be a stream of consciousness thing for me. I don't know how it is for other poets, but typically, and this goes for all the poems in the collection, but my poetry is usually completely done in one sitting. It's usually beginning to end, prose and whoever reads the book will see I have different styles. It's mainly, I guess you would call it mainly prose. But it's usually beginning to end in that one sitting, and I'm done. And that's just my style of writing poetry. I typically uh, I don't revisit it. I don't revise it. In this case, I was fortunate enough to have you interested in my work, and just from a publishing standpoint, I thought maybe I should, look at a few of these and see if I want to make any changes. But for content, it's so deeply personal. It's so raw. It can hit me out of anywhere. And if it I wish that my fiction writing would hit me that way. The storytelling is a lot more difficult for me than the than just jotting down a poem. The poem is just usually done and done.
And for anybody watching Wanda, they may think that they've just had a strange lighting effect, but it's because I'm sitting over in Australia in the middle of the day, but as we've been chatting, your evening's been drawing in, so they haven't, their video hasn't gone strange, it's just we've turned the lights on.
Exactly.
So you were saying there about the inspiration that you sit down and write all in one go. And you also mentioned that certain events have kicked off the requirement to write poems. Do you start with a single line, or do you start with an idea? How do you normally actually do the construction?
Sometimes it can be one or the other. For America's Child, I kept when this event happened, I kept hearing, "Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, how have we let our children die?" And I kept hearing that all day. And I took that and I expanded on that. Sometimes it's one line, sometimes it's something that's really struck me, and I will take that experience. I have a poem called Chunks of White Peaches, and I was struck by it may have been a little bit of an influence from an adult beverage that I may have had at this event, but I was very struck by the events surrounding this drink concoction that a friend of my brother's had brought over to his house. I was very impressed from a culinary standpoint when they started telling me how they made this. I was very, very impressed with that. And I thought, wow, I need to say something about that. And I did. And then it just morphed into this nostalgic love memory thing. It was just kind of odd. So I think that's really usually my inspiration. For the poetry, I find it much harder to write the fiction and fictional characters, more difficult, not as raw and revealing as a poetry book, because it's your soul, it's you, but more difficult.
So when you're not writing poetry and you're not doing your hotel management job, what do you get up to in your spare time?
I love watching movies. I'm giggling about that because I could almost be one of those Netflix junkies. I mean, I try not to be, but I love watching film. But more than that is music for me. I have quite a playlist of all kinds of music. And my first book, Wishton, each chapter is kind of themed by a song. Music, all kinds of music, everything from pop to classical to ballads to big band to R&B to just all kinds of music. I've always got some kind of music on.
Do you play an instrument?
I played the piano until I was in 12th grade. And like many kids, I had my fill of it by the time I left high school. So I stopped. And I did play guitar, a little bit of guitar in college, but nothing that you would pay tickets to see. So
Was this
yeah.
your college days of rebellious teenager going to be a rock star?
Well, Well, no, it was actually I partnered with a girl that lived in my dorm, and we were doing those little coffee shops in the late 70s. It was fun. It was fun. I lost the guitar to an old boyfriend, so it's like floating around out there. So it did not fit in my car when I moved to Los Angeles to become an actress. So it stayed with a former boyfriend.
Very good.
Because it did, and that's the truth.
Oh.
That's the truth. It
Now,
didn't fit
this
in the
next
car.
question,
He
this
didn't
next
fit in the car either, so I had to leave him. I had to leave him in Chicago also. So
So, in all of your writing, then, Wanda, what's the best feedback that you've received?
the best feedback, which was um, just really did so much for my confidence. Well, there are two kinds of feedback. One was a comment someone made who said, "I can't wait to find out what's going to happen to these characters." So, in terms of story, that was a great comment. The other someone said to me, who's she's also a writer, and she said, she said, I want more. She said, I like your story, but I want more. And now I think I keep that in the back of my mind with all my work. Again, poetry is so personal for me personally. Now I know there are people who will work on a poem for months. They'll work on it and work on it and work on it. I also don't share my poems in writers groups for that reason, though, because that's not my style to work on my voice, my poetic voice. But for my fiction, I've always kept that in mind. How can I give the reader more? How can I say it better? How can I how can I not be afraid to go where I need to go to write that? Because I think that we do. I think we try to protect ourselves, and what's so um, that's what was so amazing about the poetry collection. I can't protect myself in that book anywhere, but I think we can hide behind other kinds of genre.
And on the flip side of that, what would your advice be to any writer starting out?
It's funny, I've been asked that before, and I have to say, because there's such an oversaturation of information and instruction and rules and how to do it, my advice is you really have to do what works for you. Try what works for you. And it might if I didn't my first book, I didn't use an outline. And I ran into you have to use an outline. I never used an outline. It worked. It must have worked. Someone took interest in it. So I would say, don't get bogged down with an oversaturation of information, because there's so much of it. Try what works for you, and if it doesn't, don't feel guilty. Just think, wow, you know what? That doesn't work for me. So Google a little more and find another method. And that's what I would say.
And lastly, before we get on to our little quickfire session at the end, without being an advert for Book Reality, why did you decide to come to Book Reality? Why did you choose a small assistance publishing service like us instead of trying to get a more traditional model?
Going back to the uniqueness of poetry, I had gotten very weary of submitting my writing for poetry contests, or submit one poem, and we'll send you this amount of money if you win. We'll I got kind of weary of that, because I think it's personal and unique to every poet. And I had what I thought was a viable collection of some interesting work with a unique voice, my voice. And actually, I found Book Reality in a list of top independent publishers that I got this list from another writer. And I said, I'm trying to find a publisher that might be interested in where I am in my career. And I'm getting really weary of waiting for someone to discover me, so to speak, if you'll excuse an acting term. Um, and I have her to thank that that's where I found you. Your company was at the top of this very short list of the best places to pursue for an independent or hybrid publishing experience. And I said, I'm going to do this. And I was just so thrilled when you responded and said, I love your poems. It's like,
That's good.
thank you. That was a great day. You said, first of all, I love your poems. And that was good.
Well,
So
they're
that
easy,
gave me the
they're
encouragement.
easy to love, and at the same time as this is going live on YouTube and the podcast, one of you actually reading some of your poems will also be up as a reading, so people can go off and get a little sample of it as well.
Oh, it's wonderful.
So what's next for Wanda Bevan?
I have 2 or 3 projects that are a little bit in draft form that I'm working on. I am passionately trying to finish. I don't know if you I don't know if you can passionately try. I think you're doing it or you're not. I need to finish the second Wishton novel. But I do have a couple interesting projects. I have one I'm calling Gems for My Children. And I have another novel in my back pocket about based on true events. And it is a multi-generational novel about an African American family in this country that I hope folks find fascinating. So,
Fantastic.
yeah.
Well, we'll look forward to all of it. Now, we're going to end this. First of all, I'm going to thank you for taking the amount of time that you've taken this evening. And I've taken you all the way from your early evening into your night time, so we've had to turn the lights on. But we're going to end, if you're willing, to answer the 15 questions that we've kind of based on the Actors Studio, but we've taken and used for ourselves. Are you
Oh,
up for
wow.
this?
Of course. Of course.
Poet Wanda Penalver Bevan. Oh, by the way, we should say that. The middle name, Penalver, that's your
Penalver. Yeah.
Penalver.
So that's actually my maiden name.
It's a very classy treble. It's very good. So,
Oh,
poet Wanda Penalver Bevan, what is your favourite book?
Wuthering Heights.
And if you have one, what is your least favourite book?
I don't have a least favorite book.
That's
Oh,
perfectly okay.
I could look.
Creativity wise, emotionally wise, what turns you on?
Good music. I think music, and it can also inspire me to write. I mean, my mood will inspire me to write, but I usually attach my mood to music.
Okay.
Yeah.
And conversely, what turns you off?
Really, really loud noises or like traffic noise, you know, buses, trucks. I just don't do well. I don't do well near major traffic noise.
Okay.
I love to like tune it out or that or sitting in traffic. I love to do that either, but
And summer or winter?
depends on the place. Summer in Phoenix is tough, but I can get through it. Summer. I
Okay.
think summer. I think summer. That's a tough one.
On a completely free day to do anything you want, who do you spend it with?
Completely free day. I have amazing children. I really have amazing adult children. If I could spend it with one or all 3 of my daughters, I gotta go there. I gotta go there. I'm in a very loving romantic relationship right now, but I gotta that's I think that I am such a better person each day because of what I learn each day from my children, that they're just really cool people. So I'm going to say that.
Nice work. Mountains or oceans?
Ocean.
And you live in Phoenix, Arizona.
I know. but 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 I have to say, it's only it's very close to Los Angeles. It's only a 6.5 hour drive to get to one. So, and I chose that intentionally.
I love
I
that.
couldn't be
I love that Americans and Australians have the same concept of distance. It's only a 6.5 hour drive.
right, right, right. Yeah, yeah.
You know,
No one answers.
if you
Yeah,
drive for 6.5 hours in Ireland, you fall off the edge,
that's right. Got it.
and then oceans.
Right.
What is your? Oh, this will be good now. What is your favorite movie?
Oh, Wuthering Heights. All three or four or five versions of. Yeah.
And this will test you. One song to listen to for the rest of your life.
Oh no. Seriously. Um, what song to listen to for the rest? Oh, Rhapsody in Blue by George Gershwin. That's not hard. Rhapsody in Blue.
Okay.
Rhapsody in Blue, definitely. Yeah.
Who makes you laugh the most?
I think Russell, my partner. Yeah. Yeah.
What smell do you love?
Cinnamon,
And what smell do you hate?
car exhaust.
Other than a writer, or indeed any of the professions you've done, what profession would you like to have attempted?
I would love to be one of these research, medical research, health research experts, whether it's cancer research or research for viruses since COVID. I just have a tremendous amount of awe and respect for research scientists.
And what profession would you not like to do?
A plumber.
And if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
You did okay. You did okay.
Well, I think that wouldn't be too much of a stretch for him at all because your anthology is beautiful, Wanda, and
Oh,
thank you ever so
thank
much
you.
for taking the time out tonight to talk to us.
Thank you so much, Ian. It was fun. Thank you.
Excellent stuff.
Thank you for having me.
No worries. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Hi, thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel for more readings and author interviews. And don't forget to hit that bell to get notified every time we post new content.